Hello everyone and welcome to Forever Rugby on Forever Sports. Sharks 19, Cheetahs 13, and if I'm completely honest, the worst game of Super Rugby Unlocked we have watched so far. Both sides just error-ridden. It was a very sloppy affair, and thank goodness that there are replacements. Thank goodness that there is a bench, because if the bench hadn't come on and made it a half-decent game for the last 15 minutes, it was a dreadful showing by both sides. And I think there was a moment, and I think the Sharks players will look back with a bit of embarrassment, where they won the penalty on the 78th minute, and I think it was Sanele Nohamba, Marius Lowe, a couple of Sharks players suddenly very in the face, sort of clapping in the Cheetahs' face, trying to rub it in that they'd beaten them, which I think for a side who had completed less than 80% of their tackles and had been terrible the entire game was a bit rich, to be honest. And I think that both sides will walk away thinking that at the end of the day it was a pretty poor game of rugby. And I take back any complaints I've had about the tackling, although not today was even worse, to be honest, because this has been pretty much the lowest scoring game we've seen all competition, and a poor match, to be honest. And yeah, just frustrating because it should have been such a nice open game. I mean, the Cheetahs have played such nice rugby over the competition, and the Sharks, played such nice rugby last weekend when there were a couple of errors, but they looked like they were getting back to their best, and both sides just did not put on very good showings. So we're going to break it down a bit, but please do consider subscribing. Bottom right-hand corner there, smash a like. We're trying to push to 200 subscribers, so thank you to everyone who has shown their support. So, I mean, a first half to forget. I mean, if you're going to watch the highlights, don't even bother watching the first half. It was a very open first half with lots of turnover ball, lots of big breaks, but just no one taking responsibility, really, and just no ownership of just keeping it simple sometimes and getting it over the line. I mean, the Cheetahs over the game had 3 lineouts on the 5 meter of the Sharks, perfect time to score tries, and they lost 3 lineouts. You can't be doing that. How do you expect to be scoring points if you are making those sort of basic errors? And if you look at the stats overall of the match, it just shows you that it was a sloppy affair. And even the 2 tries, it's just 2 nice tries, I think. William Small-Smith ran a really nice line to score the first try of the game, and then Sharks with a penalty advantage. Bosch puts it up, and Tamwe, it's pretty much his first touch of the game, jumps on it, darts over, and puts it down. But I mean, you look at some of the stats, and it just tells you a game of very sloppy. I mean, Sharks missed 16 of 41 tackles. 16 of 40. 31 tackles made, 16 lost. That is a tackle success rate of less than 80%. That is shocking. I mean, the Cheetahs, on the other hand, missed 15 tackles and made 87. The Cheetahs should have won tonight. If they had just been clinical, they would have beaten the Sharks tonight. The Sharks deserve to be beaten. And the commentators said as much. They said that the Sharks were there for the taking, but the Cheetahs didn't take the opportunities. And that was, at the end of the day, the biggest problem is that they just didn't take their opportunities. And I mean, even if you look at the set pieces, you look at the lineouts lost. Sharks lost a lineout. Cheetahs lost 3 lineouts. Sharks lost a scrum. I think penalties conceded over here, 13-16. It was just sloppy, and unfortunate because we've seen some very good moments in the Super Rugby Unlocked, but tonight was not a particularly good showing from either team, and I think that we'll be hoping that they can both sort of improve, because I think it was quite a difficult watch and frustrating that a match which should have been like one of the matches of the weekend turned out to be pretty subpar. And I mean, you can't, in terms of notable performances, I think only 2 players reached double figures in tackles made, which kind of shows you the type of game it was. Usually there's always that one sort of player, 2 players that are really working hard. But if you go and look at sort of the tackles made, we're going to look at the individual over here. Sharks, the only person that made 2 players made 5 tackles. That was Marius Lowe and Kerwin Bosch. And even then, Marius Lowe missed 2, Bosch missed 1. That was it. Everybody else, 2-3 tackles. That's poor. It's poor. You look at the Cheetahs, Nsile made 10 tackles, Charles made 10 tackles, but they did make a lot more tackles, But I mean, something like Malcolm Lear, 2 tackles, 3 missed tackles. It was just not good enough tonight. And I think that the Cheetahs, you can go look at and you can say, look, they had 2.5 weeks, 3 weeks effectively of no rugby. And you could see that, unfortunately, in the way they played. They weren't clinical. They just, when it really counted, they couldn't make their chances. They couldn't take their chances. And if they had, they would have put the Sharks to bed pretty early. And I think the Sharks are quite lucky that the Cheetahs didn't play. That weren't just more sort of match sharp. Because if they were, they could have been put to the sword a bit, because they didn't deserve to win today. They got very, very lucky. Look, career where it's due, Kerwin Bosch kicked very well the entire night. Kicked for touch very well, kicked for poles very well. some very nice up and unders, and the Chiefs were very poor under the high ball. And it's somebody was saying the other day that there seems to be a growing trend that South Africans in general are pretty poor under the high ball. And tonight, I tell you, it backed up that theory because, I mean, Clayton Bromwich, I think, missed two very, very basic chances. And it's just, when you think that this is supposed to be the top level, at the top tier rugby in South Africa, this is sort of what you're going to, and I mean, this is a team that's going to Pro 16 next season, a team that's just been dropped from the Pro 14 and there's big issues. But you watched it tonight and you thought, this is the best that South Africa's got. It's pretty poor. I don't want to be too negative because I don't like to be negative, but I think we can all agree it was a very sloppy affair. And hopefully tomorrow we see better quality. Because I mean, you just look at the amount of missed tackles across both teams was very, very poor. So frustrating. But look, at the end of the day, you will have these games. Hopefully and thankfully, this has been the only sort of low-scoring game we've really had, especially in the last few weeks, where the tries have been coming in. But yeah, I think a game where either side sort of struggled to really sort of assert themselves onto the game. They both had their chances and they weren't really taking them. In terms of the attacking stats, Simonela Nahamba was pretty industrious. Quite a few offloads there. Marius Lowe was quite good in the attack. 11 carries, 3 defenders beaten, 1 clean break, 1 offload. Apart from that, not too much running, honestly, from the Sharks. I think he was the most running meters at 43. Cheetahs, on the other hand, Clayton Blomwich, he's had a lot of running meters, as he always does. He looked fine in the attack, 10 carries, 5 defenders beaten, a clean break. So, not terrible evening. And William Smith was also worked very hard. Tian Skuman struggled a bit with the boot, got better as the game went by. But it just looked a bit like a preseason game where it was moments where it was all right, but overall was just kind of not quite the level that you'd come to expect. But yeah, let me know what you think of the thoughts. Maybe I got completely wrong, but I just felt that it was a game that was disappointing overall. But thank you very much for watching. Please do consider subscribing. Bottom right hand corner, smash a like if you enjoyed. Jump in the comments, let me know what you think. In many ways, that the sort of the Cheetahs now really on the back foot if they want to try and compete for the Bulls. They will need the Lions to do them a favor tomorrow. Sharks suddenly in the running, but if they're going to play like that, they're going to struggle to beat other sides, especially as it's go on to Super Rugby. And I think it's safe to say that Bulls are probably the only side who started pretty poorly but are now playing fairly consistently. The Lions have been close, but still haven't been polished. The Stormers have been pretty poor in the last 2 weeks. And the Sharks looked like they had turned a corner, but today, again, was not particularly great. And the Cheetahs started off very well, but today looked a bit, just a bit sort of not very sharp. And look, if they can get back to the way they were playing before the break, then I think they can still compete across levels and they can play some nice rugby. But I think both sort of a game where the teams draw a line under it, they don't bother watching the highlights, they kind of just move on. But let me know what you think of the match. Thank you very much for watching. My name is Stephen Pettit, and I'll chat to you very soon.